Yo, my nickname is X, but I'm not a professor. The Nintendo Switch is on its way to becoming the greatest selling console of all time. So what does Nintendo do to follow up the great success of the Nintendo Switch? They shadow dropped the Switch 2 reveal. This was the first sign they were about to put up a disaster class for the Switch 2 reveal. Shadow dropping a console announcement showed the arrogance Nintendo had while entering the Switch 2 generation. But at this point, there was nothing concrete to point to the disaster class Nintendo was about to put up on April 2nd, 2025. The Nintendo Switch 2 Direct was actually viewed from the masses as a good showcase for the launch lineup of the Switch 2. With Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Nintendo GameCube Classics, Switch 2 Edition titles, and a whole slew of third-party support. But they also kinda slipped in the fact that they made what looked to be a Switch 2 packing game not be a packing game in Switch 2 Welcome Tour. Nintendo also demonstrated the impressive and powerful hardware the Switch 2 would be having, with 1080p, 120 FPS, and 4K 60 FPS gaming on a hybrid console, which is definitely impressive hardware. Yet something major was absent from this Direct. And that major thing was the price reveal. Nintendo did not reveal the price of the console or the games during the Direct. And you would think that this new Nintendo Today app would be the place where they reveal all this information, but no. They left this information for the people to find out on their own. And you know what happens when you leave the part of marketing and prices to your new console up to the people? A ton of misinformation being spread, since it's up to journalists, fans, YouTubers, influencers, and the rest of the population in general to piece together the information. This led to misinformation on the Switch 2 spreading like wildfire. 1. The majority of countries have differing prices from consoles and games, so forcing the people to cobble together whatever information you drip feed it out on the Switch 2 pricing caused a massive amount of confusion and justified anger. How does a company like Nintendo allow for such a blunder in the marketing department? They left the gathering of information up to the fans all around the world, so fans from different countries are telling each other the prices and the information of the Switch 2 and Switch 2 games, and they're all different. This is causing hysteria, confusion, and everyone is angry. Almost no one is happy because no one understands what's going on. I should also talk about how Nintendo is making it very difficult to nearly impossible on their website for the Switch 2, specifically the Switch 2 page, to find the pricing information on Switch 2 Edition games and the Switch 2 Welcome Tour. There might be other pricing that's hard to find, but specifically for those things, it's almost like a joke to how difficult they're making it to find. I'm a UI UX engineer, and I'm struggling to find this information. So I can't imagine how difficult it is for the average person. Like, I'm just going to demonstrate it for you guys. I'm going to act like I'm that average guy who wants to buy Metroid Prime 4, Nintendo Switch 2 Edition, alongside my Switch 2, and I want to know the price of that game. Alright, we're here. We're trying to find all the prices we want to know about the Nintendo Switch 2. I scroll down, found the Switch 2 price, found the Mario Kart bundle price. Okay, cool. Pricing update. Oh, okay. Oh, that don't look good. Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Okay, that sucks. Everything got more expensive with the tires. All right, let me go back though. I want to see the price of the other games. Okay, cool. Mario Kart. Okay, Mario Kart's 80, Donkey Kong 70. All right, Metroid Prime. What's the price of this? I want to see Metroid Prime price. I want Metroid Prime. Yeah. I can't click it? Oh, okay. Okay. There's all the games, but I want to find out Metroid Prime's price. I want Metroid Prime. Where's Metroid Prime's price? Oh, this is cool and all, but I just want a Metroid Prime. Huh? Oh, what? What? Where's Metroid Prime? I click games. I want to see games. Where's Metroid Prime? Where can't I find the price? New games. What? That's what I mean. I've been looking here for a minute and 30 seconds. I found the price of the new games that came out, but I can't find the price of the Switch 2 Edition games. I wonder why. And honestly,
I don't even know where I'm gonna find the price for the Switch 2 edition games. I can't find it. I actually don't know. Like I'm actually don't really know where to find it. Like Weird Packs maybe? Learn more? No, not right now. Okay, cool. Oh, okay. Cool, yeah, but can I know the price for this? Like, seriously. Like I actually don't know where to find it. Oh man, this is what I'm talking about. Like I can't find the price of the Nintendo Switch 2 edition version of the games. Like why are they hiding the price? But we know why they're hiding the price. They don't want you to know. They do not want you to know. As we were scrolling through all that, if you didn't notice, I also wasn't able to find the price of the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour $10 game, which obviously should have been a pack-in. Seems like they're hiding this information. I'm a UI UX engineer and I can't find it. And I just scrolled through this website for about 2 minutes. Like, I think a bit over 2 minutes actually. So, where is it at, Nintendo? Why are you hiding this? Because you're definitely hiding it. This isn't a mistake. This is deliberate withholding information from consumers to fight against bad PR.
Nonetheless, this caused the hate to build up and spill all over Nintendo's face during their Switch 2 Treehouse presentation, in what should have been their victory lap for them crushing their review and showcase for the Switch 2. It ended up being a showcase for the angry fans in the comment section saying drop the price. This leads to mass confusion on the Switch 2. YouTubers, influencers, fans, haters, people in the gaming industry are all confused with the information that's been drip fed out for the Switch 2, which has led to a ton of misinformation spreading. And this is Nintendo's fault since they decided not to control the flow of information through their own channels, like their Nintendo Direct and the Nintendo Today app that literally released right before the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. The former president of PlayStation, Shuhei Yoshida, claimed that Nintendo was losing their identity. That's kind of funny, with all due respect to him and all the accomplishments he achieved. The PS5 does not have the identity of the PlayStations before it, and they didn't even know what the identity for PlayStation was, because according to him, PlayStation didn't know why the PS4 was successful. So the PS5 is also a crapshoot with their exclusives. They got like 3 exclusive halfway through the generation. Everything else they're creating is like canceled live service games, and all they have is remasters. Like, you know what? I'll get to the PS5 later. Like and subscribe if you want to see that PS5 video, but for now, let's get back to the Switch 2. Nintendo announced game key cards, which are essentially what third parties did with a bunch of Switch games, but with a brand name attached to it. The cartridge is just a key to download the game, so you're able to share the game like you would with a normal cartridge, but you have to download the game after inserting the cartridge in the console, unless you already have the data installed. The first game I got on the Switch that did this was NBA 2K18, and they didn't even tell us that the cartridge was basically a download code on the box, because the box just had an ugly white text box that said, Internet download and micro SD card required. This has been going on since the Switch generation. The difference on the Switch 2 is that third-party companies are using game key cards to be lazy and not put their full games on the cartridge when they would have simply done so on the Switch 1. An example is the Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD remaster that definitely fits on a cartridge and does not need to be a game key card as it is on the Switch 2. But Nintendo failed to explain that to consumers properly, once again spreading unneeded anger among the masses. Now on to a doozy, the Switch 2 Edition games. It was up to the people to piece together that some games have paid upgrades and some games don't, because Nintendo did not share this information in their Nintendo Direct. The Zelda game's upgrades also being included in the Switch Online Expansion Pass was something that was not revealed in the Direct. The kicker is that the quality and difference in the Switch 2 Edition games versus the free updates on the Switch 2 remain vague. Some seem to be extra content, like with Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and in Mario Party Jamboree's case. In Zelda's case, they get a graphical bump and some phone features that you can use if you want to. I'm pretty sure most people won't be using that. While the free upgrades for other games are just simply resolution bumps, like in Metroid Prime 4. Metroid Prime 4 does not include more content in comparison to the Switch version, yet it's a $10 upcharge to get the Switch 2 edition of Metroid Prime 4 for what? For a graphical bump? But why are the other games getting free graphical bumps? Communication, they're failing. We don't know what's going on. We don't understand this. Why is some games free? Why is some games paid? Especially if they're just both graphical bumps. It was also up to the people to find out that the Breath of the Wild Switch 2 edition does not come with the DLC, meaning they're charging you $70 for the upgraded game that came out in 2017 and not including the DLC, so you got to pay another $20 for the DLC, meaning that the true Breath of the Wild Switch 2 edition with the DLC is actually $90. So we can all agree that price is insane. Like if they're ringing on your phone, Nintendo's trying to sell you this, your phone is just showing scam likely because that's ridiculous. $90 for a game that came out on the Wii U. Okay, moving on from that, a fan made a poster because Nintendo cannot do their job in marketing and explaining the rationale for these prices. In games like Metroid Prime 4 and future Switch 2 edition games like Pokemon Legends ZA, it seems like they're just going to be a $10 bump on top of whatever the price is for the Switch 1. But for games that add DLC, it seems like it's going to be a $20 bump for the price from the Switch 1 edition. If the game is a big enough graphic or frame rate bump, I think Nintendo's going to just charge a $10 upcharge for the Switch 2 edition, like they did for Metroid Prime and Pokemon. But as we said before, Nintendo did not confirm this. This is just what I'm assuming, based on their pricing and what they've said so far, which is not much. But once again, like I said here, we're finding this out on our own. Nintendo's not communicating. They got fans creating posters to try to explain it to other fans because everyone doesn't know what's going on. Why are some games 80? Why are some games 90? They're not explaining this, and it's up to the fans to find out all these prices. Like, what are they doing? You know what's funny? Mario Kart World being $80 let them sneak in the fact that they're charging $80 for Metroid Prime 4, and they're planning to do so for most of the other Switch 2 edition games. In Mario Kart World's case, the Switch 2 Direct did not justify that price. Nintendo actually hid the price, let their fans find out that the game was $80 on their own, and then try to keep silent on it for 2 weeks, but their president was forced out in an interview to explain their reasoning. And he said, wait till the Mario Kart Direct. The fact that they're just saying this calmly, like PR saying, go out and say, wait 2 weeks, like everything isn't burning down, and they're just saying, wait 2 weeks, guys, we're gonna prove it to you why this game is 80. And then the 2 weeks come by, the Mario Kart World Direct comes, and they show nothing more. It's literally the same thing as the Direct, they just expand upon it more, like this is coins where you get by hitting the P block. They didn't do anything, they just got people more mad. If you look at the Direct comments, the live comments are just saying drop the price. Some people are in saying raise the price as a joke, as once again, the fans are divided with all this pricing, everything going on with the Switch 2. They're just trying to push back against all the negativity. But Nintendo, you're doing this to yourself. What is going on with their marketing? Paid game chat. I mean, they were upfront about this one. They said you gotta pay to use a button on the console. They did juice it up with their marketing department working overtime in Direct, so they snuck it in for a while, but people eventually called on that. Man, you're making us pay to use game chat and it's a button on the controller. Everyone in the world knows about the Switch Joy-Con drift. So what does Nintendo do to address these concerns? What they've done almost for everything in the Switch 2 marketing. Say nothing. They just throw it out in a developer preview or something that's so difficult to find. So it's up to the fans to go and research about if the Switch 2 Joy-Con have Hall effect sticks or whatever sticks can work with the Switch 2 Joy-Con 2, that's what Nintendo calls it, to not drift. Like, come on. Just explain to the fans what they want to hear. Why they're being so difficult. The accessory prices for the Switch 2 are crazy. The prices are way higher than they were in the Switch generation. And unfortunately, in the United States, tariffs have made those of formerly announced prices go even higher. Currently, the Nintendo Switch 2 Pro controller costs $84.99 and the Joy-Con 2 are $94.99 in the United States. If I want to compare that to the standard controller for the Xbox Series, which just went up because of tariffs, it's still more expensive on the Switch 2 side, and PlayStation 5's controllers are cheaper as well. Even if PlayStation 5 increases their controllers price due to tariffs, it would still be cheaper than the Switch 2. Granted, the Switch 2 controllers are very technologically advanced, but still, they are very expensive controllers. Also, Nintendo does not have any Switch 2 controllers that are competitors to the premium controller offerings
that are offered directly from PlayStation and Xbox. So we have no reason to compare those controllers to anything Nintendo has at this moment. The Switch 2 dock is $119.99. Wow, that's expensive for a dock. They got the $39.99 Joy-Con 2 charging grip, $13.99 Joy-Con 2 strap, which is basically two small pieces of plastic with the grips and a lanyard attached to them. It's pretty laughable, but it is what it is. Nintendo Switch 2 camera at $54.99. Also, the system requires micro SD express cards, which are more expensive than normal micro SD cards. But I understand these faster speed cards are required for Switch 2 games to run, but they start at $45 just for 128 gigabytes, which is way too small to last anyone an entire console generation, especially one that is expected to last around the same length of the Switch generation. Online price. Nintendo Switch Online is $19.99 for the year, which is a lot cheaper than the PlayStation Plus Essential price of $79.99 for the year, and the Xbox Game Pass Core price of $59.99 for the year. If we move on to their more premium offerings, Nintendo Switch Online Plus Expansion Pass lands at $49.99 for the year, while PlayStation Plus Extra is at $134.99 for the year, and they have a more expensive one with PlayStation Plus Premium at $159.99 for the year.
Xbox Game Pass Standard is $14.99 a month, and Xbox Game Pass Ultimate is $19.99 a month. Microsoft only offers monthly pricing on their website,
meaning that the Nintendo Switch 2 online offerings are a lot cheaper than their competitors, which is a positive in the price aspect for the Nintendo Switch 2 that most people don't really talk about. But if you consider the Steam Deck a competitor to Nintendo Switch 2, which most people do, Steam Deck you do not pay for online and any of those PC handhelds. So comparing it to that, Nintendo loses.
Console price. Notice how I managed to get through all of this without mentioning the $449.99 console price, basically $450. You know what's funny? In comparison to its closest competitor in the market, the Steam Deck, their price is actually fair. But no one cares because you're nickel and diming them everywhere else. So now they're upset at the console price too, alongside the $80 games, or $90 if you want to buy Zelda Breath of the Wild from scratch. To make matters worse, they hid the prices from the Direct and let the people hunt and gather the information like they were nomads. They let the spread the information to the fans, which was a grave mistake because the news was not good. Even PlayStation wasn't scared to reveal the PS5 Pro's price, and that was horrible. Like, the sound in that PS5 Pro presentation when they revealed the price sounded like they were giving you bad news because they knew it was bad news. $700 with no disk drive and no stand was awful news, but they still had the ability to communicate that to the fans. They said, listen, you're going to get screwed over. Nintendo said, we're going to hide that information now, we're going to screw you over, which angers people more. If you're going to scam someone, at least let them know they're going to be scammed. Or upcharged, really. This isn't a scam. Because apparently, the bill of materials for the Nintendo Switch 2 is $400. Nintendo usually makes a profit on their consoles, so $450 actually isn't outrageous. If you account for inflation, the Switch 2 is Nintendo's most expensive console since the Wii U, so basically a generation before the Switch. The way prices are set, you look at the competitor's pricing and calculate your value in comparison to theirs and create a price. It seems like Nintendo did that for the console itself, but did not do that for the games or accessories. You give Nintendo an inch, and now they're taking a mile. Do you know what happens when you anger people? You need PR to calm it down. You know what the PR department in Nintendo did to quell these price concerns? They sent out the president of America for Nintendo, Doug Bowser, and he told them, guys, calm down. You could keep playing the original Switch. Like, this is a mirror of the Xbox One disaster with Don Matrick, telling people to stick with the older generation. Like, oh my goodness. They're having a disaster class, like a generational disaster class. Like, what? To sum it up, I'm going to make 4 categories, and these 4 categories are going to determine how bad the Switch 2 reveal was. Even though I'm not a professor, I'm going to be giving them a grade from A+ to F. The hardware Nintendo has put out for the Switch 2 is very impressive. I said the specs earlier, but I'll go over them real briefly. 1080p up to 120 FPS gaming, or 4K 60 FPS gaming. It's 10 times more powerful than the Switch, based on Nvidia's calculations. And based on what the people said the Switch 2 experience, that I didn't win the lottery for, the console feels like an overall upgrade to the Switch 2. The Switch 2 Joy-Cons feel better to use, the magnets hold on to the console better than the rails did for the original Joy-Con, the screen, albeit not OLED, rivals the Switch OLED screen and surpasses it in many aspects with its quality and HDR visuals. not mentioning the screen also being 120Hz. The main negative was the deep blacks you get from OLED screens not being present on the Switch 2. The Switch 2 Joy-Con impressed many with their new mouse feature as well. It seems like it would not have Joy-Con drift as they have a new type of stick included on these Joy-Con 2. The console itself has a built-in mic for game chat, so even if you don't have a mic, you can still talk to people. The mic's quality is a topic for another day. And comparing it to the competitors in the market, it rivals almost all other handheld devices at the moment power-wise because it's the top-of-the-line handheld. It's not the strongest, but it definitely can compete, and especially with developers fine-tuning games to the Switch 2 and it not being fine-tuned for the other handhelds, it definitely will rival other handhelds for sure. 256 gigabytes of built-in storage is only okay. Almost all Switch 2 users will have to buy the express micro SD cards for the Switch 2, which are more expensive than normal SD cards. But they require the extra speed for games to run properly on the console. Even though the screen is not OLED and the console only has 256 gigabytes of memory, which are negatives, the hardware is still great. I wouldn't give it a perfect 100, but these negatives are minor in comparison to all the positives the hardware brings. So I'll give the hardware a grade of A+. Software. Launch lineups, which are usually reserved for the first 3 to 6 months after a console releases, are not the greatest for the most part. They build up after day one, but on this side, the Switch 2 had a good review on its Nintendo Direct, where it displayed a strong software launch lineup. They showed some evergreen titles that are going to sell for the entirety of this generation of the Switch 2 with Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza. While Drag X Drive does look like a modern WiiWare game, it's probably due to the bland visuals, but it utilizes the Joy-Con 2's mouse features in an interesting way. They had some other exclusives that show promise with Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment and Kirby Air Riders. Seems like it's going to be great because Sakurai is making it. Kirby Air Ride fans have to be over the moon to be getting a sequel from the game, and it's being developed and supervised by Sakurai, who made the first one. So, game is gonna be great. You know he puts out great games all the time, so there's nothing to worry about with Kirby Air Riders. Nintendo demonstrated that upcoming Switch 1 games will be coming to the Switch 2, with some being Switch 2 edition games and other being free upgrades that upgrade the games visually. Nintendo's also adding GameCube classics to the online, which looks to be promising. The third-party lineup seems as strong as ever, and this time around, since the console is up to par with the other modern consoles of the generation, it seems like the graphics are not going to be horrible downgraded versions, and they're going to be slight downgrades from the next-gen versions like the Series S, X, and PS5, but still very playable. Nintendo getting a FromSoft exclusive, that is big. But that won't be factored in here because that game is not going to be releasing in the launch window. But on the negative side, on day one, it's really only Mario Kart World, Switch 2 edition games, and some GameCube classics. Also putting some third-party games on the side. And Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour being a paid game instead of a pack-in is a major negative. So if you're not really a fan of Mario Kart or Mario Kart World, this lineup isn't too good for you on day one. If I was only factoring day one, this grade would be lower, but since it's the entire launch lineup, I would give it a grade of B+. If they included the pack-in game, come on, they didn't include a pack-in game. I'm dropping them to a B. Take your B and enjoy it. Price. The Switch 2 console price seems to be in line with their competitors like the Steam Deck, except the Switch 2 also includes a dock and an extra format by taking off the Joy-Con 2. So you wouldn't need an extra controller to control the console in docked form. So at $450, the price isn't outrageous. Considering that the bill of materials is $400, that cost seems to be fair, albeit the fans think it could have been a bit lower. It's definitely a premium device at that price. The price of the console could be better, but the cost of the console isn't the only factor in this grade. Now we're moving on to the games and accessories. Third-party games and items will not be factored here since their prices are going to vary between their controllers, games, and accessories. For third-party games, you can assume that their prices will be in line with the other consoles. Now on to Nintendo's first party. We're starting with their $80 games, like Mario Kart World, some Switch 2 edition games like Metroid Prime 4, Kirby and the Forgotten Land plus Star Cross World, and Mario Party Jamboree plus Jamboree TV. Nintendo's charging $80 for these games, and not all of these games seem to be worth that $80 luxury price. And if you factor in DLC for Zelda Breath of the Wild Switch 2 edition, that game is actually $90 on the Switch 2 if you buy it from scratch, while games like Donkey Kong Bonanza have an industry standard price of $70, which is around the average for a AAA title now. Switch 2 edition games that have already been released being $80 is tough, because some of these games were on discount on the original Switch, so you're paying full price for the game and full price for the DLC if you need to buy DLC. So you're getting screwed over bad if you want to get that Switch 2 edition in the cartridge. Zelda Breath of the Wild Switch 2 edition not having the DLC, even though the game being $70, is criminal. that is very tough because you're going to have to cost up 90 for that one.
The Joy-Con 2 being $95, the Switch 2 Pro Controller being $85, the dock being $120, and the damn Joy-Con 2 straps being $14. With all this nickel and diming, I almost forgot that they're charging $10 for a packing game. But the Switch 2 online offering is only $20 a year, and their other more expensive offering is $50 a year. So Nintendo got the lowest cost of all consoles in their online aspect. But even though that's great, it's not enough to save the grade they're about to get.
Without saying, I'm pretty sure you know what the grade for this one's going to be. They get a big fat F. Marketing is essentially wrapped up with price because price needs to be marketed to. Because you need to show the consumer why this price is good for you, or else it'll be viewed as a ripoff or a bad price. If I'm trying to sell you something, I need to make sure you understand why it's worth that price. Nintendo didn't try to convince anyone that the Switch 2 was worth a specific price or the games are worth these prices because they hid the price and hoped people would just accept it. Their marketing for the Switch 2 was mostly misdirection and silence for the most part. Besides the Switch 2 Direct, everything else was very abrupt and random. They shadow dropped the console announcement. They hid the console, game, and accessory prices away from the fans and left the people to piece the information together. They're even getting clowned on by Reggie Fils-Aimé, the old Nintendo president of America, by making fun of how Wii Sports wasn't going to be a packing game for the Wii. But luckily, he made it a packing game, and that was definitely a major contributor in the Nintendo Wii success. While on the Switch 2, what should have been a packing game is now a $10 game that almost no one's going to buy. Nintendo released a Nintendo Today app, which promised to give us information on the Switch 2 and failed to give us the information that we wanted on the app. They've angered the fans, they've angered the people, they've angered influencers, they've angered YouTubers. It's like everybody's angry. There's a few fans that are fine with it, but most of the people are really angry. Nintendo even stooped so low as to have a paid advertisement appear as a main video on the Digital Foundry page. The positives are this. The Switch 2 Shadow Drop console announcement trailer was great for what it was. It was quick and to the point and left anticipation for the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. While that Switch 2 Direct was viewed as fantastic by most people, especially for a console reveal, they left the price out for the Direct, which soon took the hype of the Direct down for most people and led them to where we are now, where people are saying drop the price on all of their live streams, and they're paying for advertisements on YouTubers' channels. So if you take that up, the marketing grade definitely gonna be a big fat F. They did horrible. And if I take all these grades together and mash it up into one score, it averages out to about a C-. Their hardware and software did the majority of the heavy lifting for the Switch 2 review, but the pricing and marketing aspects they used completely dropped the ball for this. The main reason why this is a disaster class is because the price was hidden on their website, hidden on the Direct, which directly led to the marketing because the prices are intertwined with the marketing, and that section of marketing was left to the people. If they nailed the price and marketing, this would have been a phenomenal hit. The Switch 2's review would have been fantastic. Everyone would have been celebrating. Instead, Nintendo's arrogance caused them to make what should have been a surefire hit in the Switch 2 console reveal into a disaster class on how you should never, ever reveal a console. But if it was another company making these mistakes, I would probably be more concerned. Current day Nintendo has a huge backing of a massive amount of first-party exclusive games since they fused their mobile and home console divisions. They get more first-party games than almost any era in Nintendo history. At the end of the day, the Switch 2 is going to be a great console and it's going to be successful. The only question is, how successful? Although the Switch 2 pre-orders are all-time great, currently going to be the greatest of all time at the moment, due to the forecast on the Switch 2 being lower than everyone expected, the president of Nintendo had to go and say that this is due to the high price of the console and not US tariffs. But that's only the predicted sales. Let's see how it actually goes. Stay tuned.
Continue. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Game over. Thanks for watching.